hold off introducing Mr. Huston, so now I shall. So this is Dave Huston. Everyone say hello to Dave.
Hello, Dave.
He might prefer Mr. Huston, and I totally just created awkward moments for everyone. So Mr. Huston is a longtime coach at Colleyville Heritage. He also has coached at Highland Park and various and other places across the country. He has been very successful in both policy and LD as a coach, so he has a lot of really great perspective, and we're lucky that he is joining us on staff here after having worked the last couple of years out at Berkeley's workshop. So we're lucky to have him, and you are lucky to get to start your lecturing time with him talking about economic engagement. So without further ado, Mr. Huston.
First thing right now, if you have a cell phone, take it out. Take out your cell phones. Either turn them off or put them on silent, okay? Because I don't want any embarrassing moments where all of a sudden you're getting a text message from your mom that says, "Are you okay? Did you sleep okay last night? Did you get breakfast today?" You know, all that stuff, okay? Now, here's the other thing too, and I don't know if Tracy talked about this or they talked about it yesterday, okay? Sometime either today or tomorrow, you will call your parents. You will talk to them on the telephone, because I guarantee you that somebody in this room, I'll lay $5 on it, you will owe me $5 if your parent calls the office, calls Jason Sykes and says, "Mr. Sykes, I have not heard from my child. Are they still alive?" Okay? So you need to make sure that you do that, because I will collect $5 from any child whose parent calls. You understand? Got it? So make sure you call your parents, so you don't owe me $5. All right?
I've only got a 10.
What? I have change. Anyway. All right. We're gonna come with that, all right? Okay, any questions? Any questions about that? Okay, let's start talking about economic engagement, using economic tools to build relationships. Okay, next. Okay, what is the 2012-2013 debate resolution? Who's got it? Who knows it? Right, okay, yeah.
Resolve the United States federal government should substantially increase its economic engagement towards Cuba, Venezuela, or Mexico.
Good, okay, put it up there. That should be the next one. There you go, that's it. If you don't know what it is right now, write it down or type it or put it in your computer, okay? Uh-oh, went away, there we go. Okay. Now, when we begin to talk about these things, folks, you have to talk about, you know, why each word in the resolution is important, okay? Today, we're going to talk about pretty much economic engagement. Later on, you're going to get specific lectures about our current engagement, not just economic, but other types of engagement that we have with Cuba, Mexico, and Venezuela. You're going to get that, all right? So I'm not going to talk about a whole lot of that today. In fact, I'm going to very little of that. I'm going to talk about what economic engagement is and kind of give you an overview of some things and maybe some things that you need to know with that and why it's necessary for you to kind of understand what economic engagement is. Okay, next, please.
Oh, I'm still writing this down.
That's okay, it's going to stay up there. Okay, here's a quiz for you. When were the other times that Latin America has been debated? I have been coaching since 1975. In fact, I've been probably coaching longer than a lot of the people that are sitting in the back of the room back there that are my fellow, you know, participants here and instructors and everything. I've been coaching longer than a lot of those people have been alive, okay? All right, when it comes to that. So, you know, I've been coaching. I remember the first topic that I helped coach was dealing with scarce world resources, okay? Now, I looked this up last night to make sure. Can anybody figure out when we have debated Latin America? Anybody back there? In high school? Anybody?
89, 38.
Go ahead. Next one. 1987 and 1988, the reason I don't remember this because I got out of coaching for a little bit of time, and 1987 was the last time I got out, okay? So the next year, they debated political stability in Latin America and the United States' role in helping with political stability. How many years is that? Do the math.
A lot.
It's been at least 25 years since we have, I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of back files on this, kids, okay? You know, as far as Latin America and dealing with Latin America, all right? There's this there. The closest we come is the next one, okay? In 1994 and 95, we debated immigration. Now, do you think that had something to do with Latin America?
Yes.
Yeah, but not really. It kind of sort of did, but it really wasn't the focus. Okay? So, do you think that Latin America is a highly important part of the world? Well, we, as a debate community, have never really examined it. We haven't looked at it. So this is a pretty important topic, all right? This is a really important thing. Now, you're going to kind of look at this and go, yeah, but it's like these countries, okay? Well, we're going to talk about those in a few minutes and why they're kind of important. Okay, go ahead. All right. Recognize these? What are these? Flags of what?
Cuba,
Okay, which ones? What's the top one?
Venezuela,
Venezuela, good. What's the next one?
Cuba,
Cuba. What's the next one?
Mexico.
Outstanding, okay? You're gonna see these as we go through this. Okay, next. Okay. The first thing you have to do as far as implications of the topic wording, the United States federal government has to be the actor and the determiner of economic engagement. In other words, it has to be within the United States federal government. All right, how would we define the United States federal government? Now, what's the common definition that you hear of the United States federal government? What is it? Okay? The three branches of government, which are?
federal,
Okay, which one? Somebody give me one. Right here. The legislative, okay? Somebody give me another one.
The executive.
Executive, which includes what?
president,
The president and his cabinet and all those people, right? Why is that important? Okay, think about that for just a second, okay? What's the last one? Judicial. Which of those branches of government are going to be the most likely actors when we begin to talk about the United States federal government? Legislative, okay? Legislative branch. For what reason? This is where you have to understand government a little bit, okay? Congress writes laws. What else do they do? They pass laws. We understand that too. What do? Somebody said treaties. What about it?
They have to ratify.
They have to ratify or approve them, okay? So, somewhere along the line, you gotta have Congress do that. Why does that become important? Later on, when we begin to talk about arguments that you can make against affirmatives and everything, do you think politics is gonna enter into this? Yeah. Sure, yeah. And it's gonna be based on that, and that's why it's gonna be necessary for you, whenever you begin to talk about relationships with these other countries, to understand the role that Congress has, all right? Okay, what other branch is gonna deal with that?
Executive.
The executive branch, specifically what?
president,
President, okay? President can do that. We're going to demonstrate to you why sometimes, if the president is the actor, it allows you to possibly make a top telly argument. Because it comes down to, is the president acting as an economic agent, or is the president acting as a political agent? Those are two differences, aren't they? Okay? And it's good for you to begin to understand that distinction. What other part of the executive branch is going to become a part of this engagement? What do you think? The Secretary of State, sure. Okay. Secretary of State, who at this point in time is? John Kerry, very good. Okay. Becomes the arbiter becomes the chief negotiator of any kind of treaty or relationship or anything like that, right? Okay. What other, if it's economic, what other department might become involved?
Department of Commerce.
A lot of people would think Treasury, but you have what?
Department of Commerce.
Yeah, commerce, okay? Commerce, right, that you have, right? Think about those, because if you begin to pick your agent, that will sometimes give you some direction as far as what we do with that, okay? All right, next please. Okay. What are the current policies that the United States government has towards these countries? Okay, we got some, all right? Now, I'm not asking specifically. I want you to think about that, okay? I want you to think about this in terms of Goldilocks and the three bears, okay? Next. Okay? You got to know that first. You got to know that first as you go through this, okay? But think about Goldilocks and three bears. Next, please. Okay? Cuba. What are our current policies like? Okay? Go ahead. You got to think about Cuba as being the Papa Bear, okay? Because it is just too hard to deal with Cuba, okay? First of all, we have no economic engagement with Cuba right now. Why? Embargo. We have an embargo. Okay. How about everybody else? Does everybody else deal with Cuba? How many have ever taken a cruise to through the Gulf of Mexico and that kind of stuff, and you landed in Mexico and everything? Anybody doing that? Okay. What can you buy that you cannot buy in the United States legally? Okay. Cuban cigars. Okay, it's really kind of funny because I took a cruise a few years ago, and all these people are buying like lots and lots of Cuban cigars and Cuban alcohol and everything else, and they had a great party the night before, because once you come to the United States and try to get off the ship, do they let you bring that stuff into the country? Nope. They don't, okay? So all of that stuff. Other countries trade with Cuba. We do not. Why? How long has the embargo been in place?
60 years.
Longer than you've been alive, okay?
Oh,
All right?
can I ask, like, what an embargo is?
What is an embargo? Somebody tell me. Okay, hang on. Somebody else, over there. It's a ban on trading. Actually, is it a one-sided ban? Does Cuba want to trade with us? They do. I mean, they would. If we got rid of the embargo, you would find that Cuba would want to trade with us. And it would be to our benefit, too. You're going to find a lot of sources that say that it would be to our benefit to do that. But there's a lot of different reasons why we won't, and this is where you have to do that, okay? All right? So, how many remember the Cuban Missile Crisis? How many actually remember it? You were alive when it happened, okay? Okay. Okay, some of you in the back of the room back there, some of the teachers remember that and everything. They're old enough to remember that, okay? I was in like the 3rd grade when that took place, okay? So I kind of sort of remember it a little bit, but not as much as I might otherwise, We did what we call duck and cover drills, okay? That was like, if you've ever seen these old movies, they're actually kind of fun, because it was like, in case of nuclear conflict or the explosion of a nuclear device, just get under your desk, and you will be just fine, okay? It's like I would go through another thing, but I won't. Okay, next. Venezuela. How do you need to think about Venezuela when it comes to the 3 bears? They're like Mama Bear, okay? They're kind of somewhere in the middle. Next, please. Okay. They're kind of a little bit soft. Do we have some engagement with them? Yeah, we buy oil from them, okay? We do that. Okay, why haven't we done much with them in the past? Because Hugo Chavez. Why might that be changing a little bit? He passed away, right? I mean, he's when is it called? Oh, are we a conspiracy theorist over here? What, Chavez is just playing that he had cancer and he died, and all that stuff? I mean, really? Okay, whatever. But that's what we have, right? I mean, you have that. Okay, with that, right? I mean, that we kind of work with them a little bit. There's some things there. Is there some animosity between Venezuela and the United States? Yeah, there is. Venezuela really wants to kind of be a big player in that particular region, in that particular area, and as a result of that, you want to make sure that we kind of take care of that, okay? All right? Okay, next. Okay. What about Mexico? Mexico's like what? Baby bear, right?
The best.
Yeah, they're like baby bear. Okay, next. They are just right? Although domestically we seem to have issues, right? Domestically we seem to have issues with Mexico. What's the biggest issue we have with Mexico? Okay, a lot of you doing that. Back there. Somebody give me an answer back there in the back row. Yeah, go ahead. Drugs. Okay. Is that Mexico's fault?
Cartels.
Is it?
No, it's
Is it the government of Mexico? Is it their fault that there's a huge drug trade that comes across our southern border?
they can't do anything about it.
Okay. A lot of that, right? We're trying to do everything we can. What's the other big issue? Immigration. Okay. Right. Why is that becoming important to you? How many have been following the immigration debate that's been taking place in Congress? What's happened within the last couple of weeks? Okay, hang on a second, okay? Go ahead. Tell me what happened. What's unique about how was the Senate able to get that particular bill passed? Okay, yeah, but I'm talking about what did they have to put in the bill to make sure that they... Okay? What about the path to citizenship? Okay, what else? The big thing though was border security, wasn't it? How much money were they talking about? How much was it, Missy? Like $30 billion to do what?
20,000 new soldiers and 700 miles of fencing.
20,000 new border security agents, and what else are they gonna build?
700 miles.
A 700-mile fence. Okay? How practical do you think that's gonna be? Do you think there's a lot of people, they're gonna put 20,000 people on this fence going, don't go there. That kind of stuff is what's gonna happen. It's like, but people are thinking, but what does that tell you? What's the mindset right now? This is a horrible, horrible problem, right? We need to take care of it, and it's a huge, it's a huge talking point and it's a huge sticking point. What is the likelihood that it's gonna pass in the House? So.
Oh.
Okay, yes.
Obama said that, like, if they strengthen their borders, they're saying something about illegal crossings are going to go down 80%.
Okay. Why is that important? Yeah, stop reading the evidence. Okay. See, it's not that you just know this stuff, folks. You gotta talk about the why is the important part, isn't it? Isn't the why the important part? Because the why is what becomes debatable. All right? Start talking about the political climate that exists in this country and why it's difficult for us to do some of these things. What's happening in some of these other countries? One of the things that you have to understand that once you get into a politics debate, it's not just about the politics here in the United States. Where else are you going to have to worry about the politics?
The other countries.
Why is it that we don't want to develop or that we can't develop good relationship with Cuba right now? Because of Castro. And it's not only Fidel, it's his brother, right? What's his brother's name? Raul. Okay? It's kind of like this whole, generational, let's go through that, okay? Until you change that political climate. What about Venezuela? Is it kind of in flux right now? A little bit. What about Mexico? It's kind of tough too. I mean, because it's like who has power, who doesn't? Are they running scared from the cartels? But what you're going to find is that Mexico is going to be open to significant relationships, right? We have to do that. Why is that kind of tough topically? What does the topic say? We are going to do what? Substantially increase economic engagement with Mexico. What if we're doing a lot of that now? What if we're doing a lot of economic engagement with Mexico right now? How does that become, how can we substantially increase if we're doing a whole lot right now? Think that becomes an argument you can possibly make? Okay. See, we haven't even begun to talk about the whole critique area and some of those things. We'll get into that in a little bit. Okay. Next, please. Okay. What is included in economic engagement? Okay. I know that Louis was telling me earlier that his lab last night was kind of looking at, and I'm going to ask you to kind of do this here in just a second, to get definitions of economic engagement. Next, please. Okay. We could define both economic and engagement. In fact, how many of you are online right now? Okay, some of you are online right now. You can raise your hand. It's okay. I just gave you permission to do that. Okay. Now, somebody find me some definitions of economic. Look it up right now. Go to dictionary.com, go to ask.com, go somewhere where you can actually find a definition of economic. Okay? Do it right now. Give me one. Somebody when you find one, raise your hand. Right there.
Of or relating to economics or the economy, or justified in terms of profitability.
Okay. Justified in terms of profitability. Remember that one. Help me with that one, would you please? Okay? All right. Yes?
Economic engagement, policy of delivery.
I don't want economic engagement. I just want economic. Okay, just economic. I don't want economic engagement.
Pertaining to the production, distribution, and use of income, wealth, and commodities.
Okay, remember that. Commodities. Okay. Okay. So it's production of commodities, right? Right. Isn't that what it says? Yes.
Of or relating to the production, development, and management of material wealth as of a country, household, or business enterprise, or of or relating to an economy.
Okay. Good. Okay. Somebody else.
Considered in relation to trade, industry, and the creation of wealth.
Okay. So it has to do with creation of wealth. Okay.
Or relating to the practical necessities of life.
Okay. All right. Now, find one of engagement. What was yours again?
On, other relating to the practical necessities of life.
Practical necessities of life. Okay, that's good. Okay. Somebody find me a definition of engagement. Yes.
A formal agreement to get married.
All right, I like that one. Okay, yeah.
The act of engaging or the state of being engaged.
Okay, yes.
A plan or an obligation of agreement.
A plan or obligation of agreement. Okay. Here's how I want you to kind of think about this. Okay, give me yours. Engagement is what?
A formal agreement to get married.
A formal agreement to get married. What's yours? Right here.
Oh, for economic.
No, what was your, yeah, for economic. What was yours?
Other relating to the practical necessities of life.
Practical necessities of life or material. Okay. Could the United States federal government make it legal somehow for citizens of Mexico or Venezuela or Cuba to become legally engaged or married to individuals here, citizens of the United States?
Isn't that a green card marriage?
Wouldn't have to anymore. You just make it legal. Anybody can do it. Right? If you separate economic and engagement, now that becomes topical, doesn't it? Okay? All right? Given what you're talking about, and you do it because it's good for both parties, right? Okay? All of a sudden it sets up these legal relationships that you have. Right? Now, how many just think that that's ridiculous? Oh, come on, raise your hand. What is wrong with you? How many want to debate that case? Well, it's not a topical, Mr. Houston. Okay, wait a second. According to the definition that we just gave, and we separated them out, right? All of a sudden now, that becomes topical, doesn't it? A case like that. Because we separated the two. Now, that may be somewhat crazy, but when you begin to talk about what is economic and what's not, and what's engagement and what's not, all of a sudden now, if you don't put the two together, marry the two together, if you will, all of a sudden now, the topic becomes extremely large, doesn't it? Almost anything that you would want to do now becomes topical. Because, okay, think about this for a second. If I wanted to allow companies to sell weapons, allowed for a business that creates certain military weapons to sell them directly to individuals in some of these countries, is that economic engagement? If I separate them out, it is, isn't it? Okay, does the United States federal government now have to become an actor? The United States federal government approves those sales. Does that become economic? Or is that something else? See, when you begin to do this, those are the questions you have to ask when, one, you are choosing your affirmative, and two, you're deciding whether or not a case is topical or not. Right? Who decides what's topical? Who makes that decision?
We do.
What do you mean? I get to do that by myself?
No, the debaters decide what's topical and what isn't during the debate.
The debaters make that choice, don't they? Okay? I will tell you right now, what's the last debate that always takes place on any high school debate topic? The National Forensic League final round, right? Okay? What was the argument that was made by the negative in that round this year? It was Top Kelly. It hinged on Top Kelly argument. Okay? The last round of the year. Okay? Did we have to have in-round implications as opposed to post-round implications? Okay? When it comes down to that. But, see, topicality can be run at any time, and when you begin to take a look at it. So, okay. Go ahead, next. So, I think we just demonstrated why defining economic and engagement separately is not the best approach to take. Right? We just do that? Okay, next please. The answer is because it's very broad. It would allow for a very large topic and not exclude a bunch of anything, okay, as you go through that. So you've got to define the two of them together. Defining the two of them together allows you to really begin to limit things a lot more. Next, please. Okay? The best definition you're going to come up with is a contextual definition. Okay? Find the stuff that's in the literature, okay? Find the stuff that's in the literature, yes?
When you say best, do you mean like most advantageous to us to use, or like most fair definition?
What do you think? Think about this for a second. If I'm on the affirmative, do I want to have a narrow or do I want to have a broad definition of what economic engagement is?
Broad.
I want to have a broad one, right? Because I want to be able to run a case that I'm going to be able to win, right? And I want to be able to run a case that people are not going to maybe have good answers to, okay? And as long as I deal with the generic stuff, I'm going to be okay, right? What about if I'm on the negative? I want to have a narrow definition. Now, so really what you want to do is you want to find somewhere in there that, I mean, how many have ever been in a debate that it's just the affirmative runs something and the negative's got nothing to say? Okay, how much fun are those debates? Okay, if I ask the people in the back of the room, yeah, depends on which side you're on, right? Now, if I ask the people in the back of the room if they've ever judged a debate like that, I think everybody's hand would go up, right? Everybody's hand would go up, right? How much fun are those debates to judge? They're terrible, because it's like, it's not any fun, because you feel sorry for the team that doesn't have anything to say, all right? And not only that, it's like, okay, when is this round over with? And everybody tries to use all of their speech time. And that makes it even worse. You know, it's just really, really bad. So I think what you want to do, it's fun to debate, right? It's fun to kind of go back and forth and everybody's got something to say and everything. So I think, you know, when it comes down to, when we talk about best being a contextual definition, I think fairness does enter into it. It gives a balance. So both sides have something to say. Okay, next please. Okay? What you have to do is the definition has to include something that is a positive incentive to achieve an objective. In other words, when you begin to talk about economic engagement, what you're looking at is giving incentives so that you achieve a particular objective. All right? Somewhere in there, that definition is going to be there. Now, I'm going to give you some definitions. I'm going to demonstrate to you what the literature says. And if you guys want to chime in and you have some other things you want to talk about there, this is your topic. You know, so if you want to help with that, that's fine. Okay, next please. Okay. What does economic engagement include? Okay, next. There it is. There's two people by the name of Huston and Sullivan about 13 years ago. They're with the Brookings Institute, and you can probably find this. Argued that economic engagement included the following. And I'm going to give you a laundry list of what these things are. Okay? Next. First one, export credits. Okay, what does that mean?
Money going.
What would export credits be?
Money leaving the country?
Yeah. Or for that matter, you give money or incentives to either export, or you even exports from other countries, you give them credit as well, okay? Go ahead. Investment insurance or promotion, okay? So what you do is you invest in something that is going on in one of those countries, all right? Or you give insurance for that, or you promote that. You go to various places and you say, we want you to invest in this in Mexico or in Venezuela. Or if we lifted the embargo, to invest in Cuba, you know, and things that are going on in Cuba, right? Next, please. Access to technology. What technology would these countries want?
Telecom.
Telecom stuff, okay? You're right. Greater access to the internet. What's the actual infrastructure in these countries like? Okay? Especially their electrical grid. What's it like? Okay? As far as energy technologies are concerned, what are the big energy, sources that they use in these various countries? Okay? Probably oil, But access, any kind of access to technology that we would have would be something. Okay, next. Loans and economic aid. Giving out loans and economic aid. That would be economic engagement. Okay? So anything to go along those lines. Okay? That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? We kind of understand that? All right? Next, please. Removal of penalties such as embargoes, investment bans, or high tariffs. All right? How about oil from Venezuela? Do you think it has some pretty high tariffs on it?
Yes.
Yep.
Why?
Because of Hugo.
Government makes a large money. Who else makes a large money off of making sure that we have tariffs that are pretty high?
American companies.
Yeah, United States companies. Oil companies are gonna ask for those, when it comes to that. Okay, what about Mexico? How many have ever been in El Paso? Ever been to El Paso? What's across the border from Juarez, okay? Juarez, Mexico. How large of a city is Juarez? How large, first of all, how large a city is El Paso? How large of a city is El Paso? About between 300 and 500,000 people when you kind of take in the whole area and everything. How large is Juarez? 2 million. There are 2 million people there in Juarez, right? Okay. How many have ever been up the mountains around El Paso? You ever done that? Ever look back over? Can you tell where the border is between Mexico and the United States? How? The air on the United States side, pretty clean. What's it look like on the Juarez side? Kind of scary. It's smog. You can see it. Why? What are the environmental regulations like in Mexico compared to the United States? So what are a lot of companies and businesses doing?
Polluting.
Are they moving to Mexico? Kind of do some of those things, So, embargoes, we have an embargo with Cuba right now. Could your affirmative be, could one of the largest areas be getting rid of the embargo with Cuba? Yeah, you bet, okay. Any kind of investment ban and that kind of stuff that takes place right now, removing all those. Okay, next please. Okay. You could also facilitate entry into global economic arena and in institutions. What the heck does that mean? Okay, go ahead. Okay, now think about that for a second. What are we talking about here? When we talk about economic arena and institutions, what institutions are we talking about? What's one of the biggest organizations? What? NAFTA might be one, but I'm thinking about one that might be a little bit bigger.
The World Trade.
There you go, the WTO, the World Trade Organization, okay? Look that up. Is Mexico a member of the World Trade Organization? Is Venezuela? Is Cuba? Are they members of those organizations? Of that organization? Could your affirmative be to help them enter into some of those, okay? Or gain entry into some of those organizations, or create institutions to do that. When you begin to do that, okay? Now, why might that not be economic? Why might it be something else? Okay. Might be political. Might be political. Okay. All right. Next slide, please. Ardis Selleck, who's a professor of international relations at Uppsala University, wrote in his 2011 book, here is a purpose, if you will, or a good definition of what economic engagement is, okay? So go ahead and write that down. I could read it to you, but it's kind of like... Now, once you kind of write it down, tell me what it actually means. What are the important parts of this statement? What do you see all the way through that?
Enter.
Mutually.
Why are you friends with the people you're friends with?
They're mutual friends.
What does that mean?
That means that since if you're friends.
Okay, one, you have things in common. What else? Common interests. What else? When you say you are a mutual friend. How many have friends?
You're both allies.
How many of you have friends that they may have a significant other, and that significant other just uses them? You know, and they're really mean to them, and they do all sorts of things. And you look at them and say, what do you see in that person? All right? Is that a good relationship? Why not? If I'm on the other side of that, I'm okay with that, right? You know, it's okay. You know, I can use somebody, it's all right. Seems to be an attitude that some people have, right? You're shaking your head going, no, it's wrong. Okay, why? What's wrong with that relationship?
It's abusive.
Is it unbalanced? Okay, notice that what's all the way through this? An intersection, an interconnectedness, a mutual dependence, okay? And then an economic interdependence. In other words, what is good about that relationship if you are economically engaged? You're with both of them, right? It's a balanced relationship. You both get something out of it. Correct? Okay, that would be the best thing that happens. So, if you're on the affirmative, how does that help you? Does what? Okay, somebody else besides these guys here. Think about this. If you're on the affirmative, why do you want to claim that interdependence and that mutual dependency, why do I want to claim that? Okay? Somebody over here. Somebody over here. Why do I want to claim that? Go ahead.
You'd be topical and you'd help America out at the same time.
Do I just want to claim the United States?
You can go for the world, I guess.
Think about this for a second. In the world of the critique, Brian Kirsch, in the world of the critique, as we go through this, what is that critique basically going to say, do you think? We're just using them.
To globalize.
Right.
Expand our privilege.
So if you have an advantage that says that no, this is good for both sides, then what does that do? What does that help? Does it help you answer the critique maybe? Good. Kirsch is saying no, you know, it doesn't necessarily do that. But at least it gives you a head start there. It gives you some ground that you can start to work with, right? That's not just about the United States. We are not so egocentric that we believe that it's just about us. It's about the other country too. We are mutually beneficial to each other, okay? So that interconnectedness. Now, if you're on the negative, how does that, what do you want to prove then? What's the opposite of that? That's not beneficial. It's not beneficial to the receiving country, especially, see, and what else? Serves the sender state to do what?
Change the political behavior. It's just another method of control.
Yeah, becomes a method of control. So this definition, the last sentence is a good negative definition, isn't it? Because we are now trying to influence, we're now trying to do things, we're trying to do some stuff that is not good, okay? Think about this for a second. What would be our best argument to get rid of the embargo?
So that,
Business people in Cuba come to us, come to the United States and they say, gee, we really want to trade with you. We really want to develop an economic climate in Cuba that would be beneficial to us both. How can we do that? What's the United States response going to be to that? What's the United States response going to be to that? Tell me. What do you think? What do you have to do?
You either have to.
In that instance, what's the best thing to do? Get rid of Castro? You get rid of Castro and we're fine. Get rid of the Castro brothers, we're great, right? Are you changing the political climate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, how might those people go about doing that? Are they going to have a vote? You think that's how they're going to do it? I got a feeling they'll probably blow something up. I don't know. Something tells me that. I don't know. Something's going to happen. You think that's good? Probably not. Okay? There's probably some ramifications for that. Okay? All right. So, we get an idea of why it's necessary to put the two of them together. and why economic engagement is a good thing. So when you begin to look at this topic, you have to take a look at economic engagement within the context of this whole political and, you know, relationships between countries and everything, and get into that kind of contextual definition as far, instead of separating them and bringing them apart. Take a look at what you have as far as economic engagement is concerned, right? All right, next please. Okay, let's talk about what political engagement, what are other types of political engagement? How about political? What would they be? Go ahead. Next. That's okay. Okay. Diplomatic recognition. What do we mean by that? Yeah, you go, oh, I know you. Yeah. See, so what it is we develop diplomatic ties. Do we have an embassy in Cuba?
No.
Do we have an embassy in Mexico?
Yes.
Do we have an embassy in Venezuela? Okay. See, is that diplomatic relationships? Okay. So, if you develop diplomatic ties, that's political engagement. It's not economic engagement. It's something different. Next, please. Access to regional or international institutions. Remember we talked about that before, maybe? As being economic. You can make the argument that that's political instead of economic. Okay? Because, now, the WTO is one that that's sole purpose is to do what? Has to do with trade, doesn't it? Okay, what about the Organization of American States? What about that one? Is that just for trade? Is that just for economics? Is Cuba a member of the OAS? Look it up. Are they a member of the OAS? Are they? Okay. The OAS. Okay. All right. Are they participating members? Do they participate on a regular basis? What's that?
It says, excluded from the participation in the organization is a decision adopted by the 8th meeting of the consultation in Venezuela State, Uruguay on 31st of January 1960.
And?
A vote was passed by 14 in favor, 1 against 2, and 6 abstentions. First was that adherence by any member of the organization of the United States Markets.
So are they members or not?
Yeah, and they rejected rejoining 2009.
Okay. So, now you could make the argument that that could become economic engagement by letting Cuba in, right? However, would that be more political? But it also has a political purpose too, doesn't it? Okay? So you have that. Okay, next please. Okay. Summits between leaders. Okay?
Wait, no, it says they're a part of it.
They are? Okay. They're still
It just
members?
said, it said they lifted the suspension on June 3rd, 2000.
Okay, good. All right. So, it's important for you to know that. You know, what organizations, because I'm going to show you in just a few minutes, that there's some organizations to which the United States belongs, but other countries do, you know, that other countries don't, or for that matter, that, you know, that these other countries have kind of said they don't want to play with the United States. All right? So when it comes to that, okay? Summits between leaders. How's Obama looked at by other leaders in the world? How do they see him? Is he easier to get along with than George Bush? Okay. What is the Monroe Doctrine? We haven't really talked about it much as far as this is concerned. Tell me what the Monroe Doctrine is. Go ahead, back there. How old is it, first of all? Okay. That the interest of Latin America is the interest of the United States. And then we pretty much said that we were gonna be the biggest, baddest, whatever, on the block when it came to Latin America and anything in the Western Hemisphere. We weren't gonna let people mess with that, all right? All right? Has that ever gotten changed? Teddy Roosevelt, what did he have?
Oh, God, that, the Corliss, remember?
Yeah, the big stick policy, right?
The canyon, right, the like.
Right, and pretty much said, no, we're gonna do that, everything we can to protect. What about the Bush Doctrine? You familiar with the Bush Doctrine? Yeah, this did come from George W., right? Big on the hegemony debate, okay? Bush Doctrine pretty much put the Roe Doctrine and said, okay, it's no longer just the Western Hemisphere, it's the entire world, okay? Not only is it the entire world, but the best part about it too is that he says, look, if we think we're threatened, we're going to take it upon ourselves to kind of like preempt this. Okay, if we think we're being threatened by somebody, we're not going to wait for them to do anything. We're just going to go take them out. Okay? Okay, that's why he's from, that's kind of a Texas thing, isn't it? You know, I can say that because I'm not originally from Texas, but it seems to be a real Texas kind of mentality. You know, my gun's bigger than yours. I don't know, whatever it is. Why is that important when we get to talk about leaders? Is Obama perceived differently than Bush is perceived? If you start reading some of that literature, it really begins to talk about the United States is much more open, is less condescending, is much more interested in the interests of that country instead of always promoting our own interests. All right? That's what some of the literature says. Other people will tell you it hasn't changed. All right? That things are still the same. All right? Next, please. Okay. Commercial interests that include people to people. Okay? This would be humanitarian concern and other historical ties that we would have. Do you think that brings in some extra topicality there? Sure. Okay? The United States could promote things like the Peace Corps or, you know, other organizations that work directly with those. You know, NGOs, non-government organizations, where we give some support or allow entry by those NGOs into some of these areas of doing some of those things. Okay? So you have them. Those are all political engagements. All right? Why is it important for you to make that distinction?
So you don't go into those ways.
Okay. Think about it in two ways. Okay? Because we're going to show you another one here in just a second. Okay? You need to think about this in two ways. One, it limits the topic. Because we talked about how big this topic could be, right? If you can make the distinction between political engagement and economic engagement, you have now begun to shrink the topic down, okay? Why else do I also want to make sure that there's a difference between economic engagement and political engagement?
Eliminate for the
Okay? Think about this for a second. What is one of the negative strategies we're going to have? It's not just topicality, but what else?
Okay.
The critique and counterplans. Okay? Could I use a political engagement to solve the affirmative? And to work with the affirmative and do something different and demonstrate why the political engagement is better than the economic engagement? What if I allow for political engagement to be part of the topic? Do I have that counterplan at my disposal anymore? I don't, do I? Because I've allowed them to make that topic that much bigger. See, that's why I want to limit the topic, because it gives me better ground. It gives me much better ground than I would have otherwise. Okay? Right, next one, please. Military engagements, okay? Notice what we have here. You know, we have the eagle that has, you know, turning, you know, bloody things into Latin America and everything. I really thought that was an interesting image. War on drugs, drones, all those kind of things, right? Okay, that would all be military engagement, okay? Next, please. Okay? The extension of the military or any kind of educational training. Would we train troops? Where would we most likely be training troops? What do you think? Patrick, what do you think? Mexico, probably. you know, we would enter in some kind of military arrangement where we are training our troops to do what? Fight the war on drugs, right? Okay. You know, but if I gave money to be able to do that, to support that, that's economic engagement, right? You guys are shaking your head up and down and going, no, Mr. Houston, that's not economic. That's military, okay? Next, please. Human rights among armed services. What is one of the biggest controversies that's taking place in our armed services right now? Yeah, sexual abuse, right? Is that a human rights issue? Sure. Okay. Could I try to change, if I change the culture in our armed services and the ones that are working with other armed services in other countries, you know, and taking that same culture into those and somehow paying for that, is that economic engagement? No, that's a military engagement. That's also probably a political engagement, okay? Go ahead. Establish relationship between the United States and other foreign military officers, okay? All right, that we might have. What would that mean? Do we train other people's officers, other military officers? Establish schools to be able to do that? Okay, next. Arms exchanges, offering security services. Anything that would do that. We could pay for that, right? We could pay for those things. That would be economic. Or people would say, well, it's economic and everything, but, you know, really that's what that is. Okay, it's a military engagement. This one is much more clear, you know, as far as what the delineation is between military and economic. All right? Does this also give you some kind of playing ground though too? Okay, where are you going to see the most economic engagement or claims of economic engagement on this topic? You think you're going to see it here? That's where you're going to see that problem, is the war on drugs. All right. We're going to see it. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Next, please. Here's an important consideration that you have, okay? Although the topic requires United States federal government action, it does not specify action within the governments of the target countries. What word in the topic might, towards, okay? Towards, if you can find a definition that says that that's a governmental thing, as a government to government, as opposed to government to private, then you're going to be okay. All right? Okay. Next, please.
Oh, all right.
Oh.
Right this out.
Okay. Yeah, learn the Latin American alphabet. All right. This, by all means, is not necessarily the thing, but these are some of the most important organizations we can talk about. I don't have the Organization of American States up there, but you need to understand what that organization does, okay? Here's the next one. NAFTA. What is NAFTA? North American Free Trade Agreement. Who's it between?
Canada, U.S., and Mexico.
So there's only 3 countries involved with that, right? Okay? There's only 3 countries that are involved in that. Next, please. There you go. It's a trade agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. What's its purpose?
Remove trade restrictions.
Open trade, Mr. Houston. What does that? What does that mean? Open trade. You eliminate tariffs.
No restrictions.
No restrictions as far as what? What's one of the most important restrictions that has been lifted? Transportation of goods, right? Across borders. Pretty easy, isn't it? To do that, when it comes down to that? Okay? So is that an economic agreement? It's an economic agreement. NAFTA is an economic agreement. Next one. This is one of my favorite ones, ALBA. ALBA, what's it stand for? Next slide, please. Or next one. It's the, I can't even say that, Bolivarian Alternative for the Americas, okay? Kind of what happened here is Venezuela was the one that really kind of pushed this. And it said, fine, you don't want to play with us, we are going to get a bunch of other countries together. We're not going to let you play with us anymore. And what it is, it's Venezuela, Cuba, Bolivia, Nicaragua, and a number of the island countries that are in the Bahamas, in those areas, and just off the coast of Latin America, a bunch of those countries. It's like 30 plus countries that are together, and they form this organization. And how does it function? Much like this. You know, you have the trade, the trade and the diplomatic relationships that go back and forth between them. Okay? What could one of your affirmatives be? Yeah, join them. You know, United States. Petitions for entry into that. Now, do you think you're going to find a solvency advocate? Maybe. Maybe not. Okay? There's another one that I'm going to show you here in just a second that is probably much more likely. Okay? All right, next one, please. Did you all get that one? Okay. CELAC. Okay? C-E-L-A-C. Go ahead. It's a community of Latin American and Caribbean states. It was founded in 2011. It includes 33 countries. Who gets excluded? United States and Canada. Okay? Mexico part of this? Why was it founded? Look at the bottom. It's an alternative to the OAS. Why would the Latin American countries consider this a good alternative to the OAS? Yeah. How many different organizations do you belong to that kind of cover the same thing? I belong to a lot. I'm a member of the National Debate, Coaches Association. I'm also a member of the National Forensic League. Pretty much the same kind of thing, right? I mean, it deals with the same stuff. Are they two different organizations? Okay. Are they mutually exclusive? Kind of, sort of. Okay. You understand? So, why would you want to have an alternative to the OAS? Because the United States isn't in it. Okay. That's why they want to do it. Because we aren't a member of that. Okay. Now, why is it necessary for you to do some of these things? Okay, who is the actor in the topic? Who is the actor? United States, right? United States is the actor, right? What could this possibly be? Could be a counterclaim, couldn't it? Could this be your agent in a counterclaim? Have this organization do it instead of having the United States do it? What you're doing? Because they already have diplomatic and trade relations, right? They already have an economic relationship. And if you have evidence that says they could do it just as well, what difference does it make, right? Now you're going to say, but that's not beneficial to the United States. Who cares? If all your advantage is, would you capture then advantages that talk about what was good for that other country? Yeah, you would capture all those advantages, right? Next. FTAA, what do you think that stands for? What do you think the FT stands for? Free trade, okay? Next. It's the free trade area of the Americas. It's a proposed agreement to expand to all of the nations of the Western Hemisphere, excluding who? We don't like Cuba. We don't like Cuba. Who opposes it? Alba. Why would they oppose it? Why would they oppose it? Is Cuba a member of ALBA? Yeah. Okay. Well, you don't like our kid. It's kind of like, you can come play with us, but you got to leave that guy behind, right? You can't have that. All right? So, it's a proposed agreement. Do you think possibly you could pass that and maybe include Cuba? Or just include, notice that the topic says Venezuela, Mexico, or Cuba, right? You don't have to have all three of them. So if it's beneficial to Venezuela and Mexico, why not go ahead and form it? You don't have that, all right? What does it look like? What other organization did we just talk about that it looks like? give you a clue. The other one has free trade in it too. So what we're doing is we're taking NAFTA, which now just includes the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and we're opening it up to the entire Western Hemisphere. Think that would be a good thing? Probably. Okay. All right. So, learn the alphabet. Learn the Latin American alphabet, because there's a lot of these organizations that are floating around out there and doing those kind of things, okay? Everybody got that? Okay, next one. What are some of the possible affirmative advantages? We're going to talk about 4 advantage areas, and I guarantee you that if you learn these, and you engage in these, and you find evidence for all of these, ladies and gentlemen, you will have covered the vast majority of advantages that are going to be talked about on these particular topics, on this topic. You get those, okay? You ready? Okay, what's the first one? Hegemony. What is hegemony? World domination, right? Hegemony, actually it's not. What is hegemony? Consider to be what? Yeah.
Commerce, trade, movement of money.
What do we focus on? This, right? We do that. What is unique about the United States right now? What is the argument that a lot of people would make? Are we the biggest, baddest nation that's out there right now? Does anybody mess with it? People try to mess with us, but what happens? I always make this joke, but you know, every once in a while China starts to talk about how they want to take something over and they want to do something in Asia, right? And what does the United States do? They decide to have a naval exercise, right, in the South China Sea, and they send in the 7th Fleet, okay, which has a gazillion aircraft carriers and everything else, and they just kind of, why do we do that? Why do we do that? Just because we just kind of look at China and said, you don't want a piece of this. You know, you don't want to mess with us. Because if you do, this is what you're going to get, okay? This is what we're going to bring down on you. You know, it's not going to be a good thing, okay? You know, that kind of stuff. So we have that leadership, but what arguments are being made by a number of different scholars? Right now we're in a unipolar world, right? Where the United States seems to have the power and everything, but what are people now saying? Multipolarity is coming in. That other countries are starting to come to the forefront. That they are becoming what they would call regional hegemons. In other words, they have more influence in that area. For example, what country would have a whole lot of influence in Latin America right now? Brazil possibly, although their economy is kind of going in the tank right now. It's not very good. Okay? It's one of the 3 countries we're talking about here, kids. Not Mexico. Venezuela. Venezuela has a tremendous amount of influence in that area. You know, now, trying to find a Venezuela case, right, Shelby, is kind of hard right now. Trying to find anything. Yeah, it is. It's come along, but it's kind of hard, right? Because we have some relationship with them, but not a whole lot. And it's more about what they do in that region than what we're doing, okay? And that kind of stuff. So, but your case is going to deal with United States leadership in that area and the reaction of other countries to it. Do they like us in Latin America? Not really. We're not very popular down there, okay? Part of it is, I'll give you one of the reasons, okay? And it applies to us as a debate community. What would it be? How many times have we debated Latin America in the last, 25 years? Twice, maybe, once, okay? Have we largely ignored Latin America? How many have heard Latin America disadvantages, or somehow we're just going to piss off Brazil and that's a bad thing? Okay? Have you ever heard that disad? No, because it doesn't exist. Okay? There is no disad that says that Brazil's important, or Mexico, or any of that kind of stuff. Okay? We just kind of, Latin America, we just kind of go, oh yeah, they're there. And the only time we get upset with them is when they start sending people through the southern border of the United States and they try to take over our country. Down here and everything. You are going to find a book that's called Who Are We? It's by Samuel Huntington, who also wrote, how many have ever heard of Clash of Civilizations? Ever heard of that book? Okay. Huntington wrote a book. He passed away a few years ago. But Huntington wrote a book in like 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. That's called Who Are We? And he makes the case in that book that immigration into this country right now is not a good thing, okay? And really what Mexico is trying to do is to take back the land they lost in the Mexican-American War back in the 1840s. That's what they're trying to do. What do you think part of that United States would be? Tejas. Okay, right here, baby. Okay? And you're going to say, well, that's why we don't like those people. It's like, really? You know, when you're really going to come down to it? All that stuff, okay? So that's when we pay attention to them. Otherwise, what do? Do we largely ignore them? Yeah. Okay? That's why they don't like us, because we don't engage with them unless we have to, unless we get something out of it. All right? So, here comes that. Okay. So hegemony is going to be good. Okay, next one, please. Oil dependency. Energy development in any one of the three countries. What's one of the big things that Cuba has right now? Oil. Large oil reserves off the coast of Cuba. Tons of it. Okay, lots and lots of it. Are we looking for, how many of you are energy efficient and you really are concerned about energy efficiency and everything else? How many have parents that drive a hybrid car? Very few of you. All of you still drive cars. How many walk everywhere that you go? Ride your bike?
I don't know how to ride a bike.
Good. You have no balance. Anyway, how many of you will drive or get a ride wherever you go? Okay? Okay, all this oil dependency stuff that you're talking about, please. You know, we're dependent upon that, aren't we? Okay? Why would we want to make sure that we go talk to Cuba about their oil? Because if we don't, who's going to? Not Venezuela. You said it. China's going to do it, right? Is China starting to have a whole lot of influence and have a sphere of influence in Latin America?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Lots of it. Are we kind of afraid of that?
Yes.
Sure. Do we want to have that kind of influence?
Yes.
What caused the Cuban Missile Crisis? Russia was planting missiles 90 miles away from the United States. Okay? If China entered into agreements with Cuba to be able to develop their oil and everything else, what else are they going to develop? How about North Korea? That'd be kind of scary, wouldn't it? So energy development with any of the three countries would help decrease our dependency on what? Middle East oil, Middle East sources. Why do we want to have Middle East sources for oil? Pretty unstable over there, isn't it? You know, would this give us a more stable resource and a much more stable source? Yeah. Okay. Next, please. Economic growth. Whose conditions are we going to improve? Ours, right? And theirs. Why would that not be a good thing sometimes? Okay. What is the argument that places like Nike and other organizations or other businesses have made that they have put some of their manufacturing plants in some of these lesser developed countries? It's cheaper labor. Why don't they pay those people more or as much as they pay people here in the United States? Go ahead. Hang on. Go ahead. That's part of it, strict labor laws, but what else? Here's the argument that Nike and some of these other countries have made, or these other companies have made, folks. Okay? Go ahead. Possibly. Why don't they pay them as much? Why are they paying them like $10 a day to do that kind of stuff?
Because it seems like they're helping the economy.
Are they? Okay.
Most of those people are poor and underprivileged, and they need the money so desperately.
That's part of it. You know, that's the argument everybody makes. You know what Nike says? We would pay them more. We'd be more than happy to pay them more. But if we did that, it would destroy their economy. Because right now, the wage level is so low that if we gave these people much more, that would create inflation. It would create greater demand for things that people can't have and everything. They'd have more money than what they would know to do with. We'd turn these people into instant rich people. We can't do that. You know, it's good for them not to earn that much money. Okay? I'm not kidding, folks. Go look that up. They will make that argument that that's one of the reasons they do that. But once the United States gets into these new markets and begins to prop some of these things up, does that develop new markets, allow for corporate expansions and development in these other countries? Okay? Now, what's the problem with that sometimes?
Means we lose jobs here.
What environmental issues does it create? We talked about Juarez, right? Air pollution, you have the smog, what else? It's going to take up more,
Freedom.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Okay, Sarah's back there. Hi, Sarah. Anyway, what else? Come on, guys. Yeah.
Well, at least this happened in Haiti because they couldn't like afford fuel and stuff. They ended up cutting down like most of the trees.
Sure.
Like firewood.
Loss of forests, loss of trees. I don't know how many rainforests are in Venezuela. You know, maybe there might be some. I don't know. Don't know if there are any in Mexico. You know, some areas. You know, those kinds of stuff. Okay. But economic growth is one. Okay. Last one. Number 4. That one. Social issues. Increasing engagement would lead to addressing other issues such as immigration, healthcare, human trafficking, drug trafficking, nuclear proliferation, all of those things would be dealt with, okay, if we economically engaged. You're going to find people will claim these as advantages, okay? What is one of the reasons that we are seeing fewer immigrants coming in here from South American countries or Latin American countries than we have in recent years? Because immigration, actually, the trend in immigration is actually going down. Why? Anybody guess? Go ahead. Somebody was saying it over here. Go ahead. Louder.
Their economies are improving.
Their economies are improving. If their economies are improving, what's my incentive now to go to a different country to work? Not there, is it? Okay? So if I want to solve an immigration issue, one of the things I want to do is make sure the economic climate in some of these other countries is better. Because if it's better, it gives a less incentive for these people to go anywhere. All right? Gives them less incentive to do that. All right? Drugs, same thing. What's one of the biggest problems we have in Afghanistan? What's their biggest cash crop there? Opium, or poppies is what it is, which is used then to make opium and other opiate-based drugs and all that kind of stuff, right? So what do we have to do? Do we have to give them an alternative to grow? You know, that's kind of what you have to do and everything else. And stop them from looking at getting weapons of mass destruction, doesn't it? Okay, when we begin to engage with them. Right. Okay, I think that's it. Is that it? Oh, there we go. Have fun with these countries. I thought this was kind of a fun map. Okay. You see this? Okay, what country is that? This kind of got cut off. But I bet most of you, where is Venezuela in South America? Do you have any idea? Well, it's kind of like right here with you. It's kind of like, right? Okay, kind of like. So learn the shape of the country so at least you can point out to it. You can point to it on. Right? So you kind of know that. Okay. Haven't covered a whole lot of other areas. I'm going to leave it to other people to talk about the critiques of this particular area. You know, would economic engagement lend itself to critiques?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the very nature of that lends itself to critiques. What critiques can you think of right off the bat?
Spanos.
Why Spanos?
Humanitarian aid towards.
Okay. What else? Okay, but if it's Capte, right? Capte. We have government would be one, that would fill into that. Interventions, or Brian Kirsch is who's going to help our lab put together a colonialism critique, right? That talks about that, right? Those kinds of things. Yes.
Imperialism.
Sure, imperialism. That we have. coming back there. What other things? Why else do we want to engage with these Latin American people?
Empire.
Okay. The empire kind of is the imperialism stuff and everything else that you get into. Okay. Now, at the risk of offending someone and everything, what do these people look like? Are they Caucasian? No. Most of these people look different, don't they? All right? So why do we need to help them? Because they just can't help themselves. Because, you know, it's just because they come from a culture and they come from, you know, times and everything else. Most of you give me this look like, Mr. Houston, are you serious? Okay? Of course. But is that an attitude that seems to be prevalent sometimes? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay? You think that's problematic? Okay? Do you think there's going to be some critical race theory and some other race-based critiques that could very easily become a part of this particular topic? Oh yeah. You know, very much so. Okay? And you're going to have some of your instructors talk to you about that. Okay? And talk to you about those things. All right? There is a place for critiques in policy debate. Because it really questions what is the motivation for the policies that we begin to develop, okay? Do we need to question those? Oh yeah, we very definitely need to question those. Because we can stand up and say with all these affirmative, you know, advantage areas and everything, oh, it's great that we do this, we're helping everybody and we're helping both, and yada, yada, yada. Are we really? Maybe. Yeah. Okay, all right. What questions do you have? I got a couple minutes left. Any questions or anything we covered? Okay.
Anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Was the FDA opposed?
What's that?
Was the FDA an actual?
Yes. It's a proposal. It's not.
Okay, so it's not actually a regulation.
No. Probably a collection of the United States and some other countries. Okay. Somebody explain the Spanish paper.
In a nutshell, basically saying that, I don't really understand fully, but we are the U.S.'s humanitarian aid or we provide humanitarian aid.
Why is that bad?
It causes to take over, I guess. Or not really take over, but.
So in other words, the motivation behind the humanitarian aid is not necessarily humanitarian. We're not doing this. Yeah, we're masking our real intent. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it's a bit more than that, though. It has to do with, like, the United States thinks that we know everything, like, we have a monopoly on knowledge, everything that the United States wants us to do. These other countries aren't civil countries, they don't know what we're doing, so we need to spread, like, our knowledge to these other countries and help them understand and things, stuff like that.
How many of you know people that they just don't realize how annoying they really are?
I do.
Okay, no, I mean, from the standpoint, it's not because we're annoyed by them and everything, it's just that they always come in and they always act like they know everything. And they want to prove to everybody that they are the smartest person in the room. You ever deal with people like that?
Yes.
Okay, right? You deal with folks like that? Shh, stop, okay. Take this outside, boys. Okay, now. Right. Am I right? That's kind of what the Spanos case is about, right? Because we act like we are the smartest and the best person in the room, and sometimes we're really not. Okay? There we go. So, all right. Any other questions? Good.
Let's
You learn a lot?
Let's give him a round of applause. Also, little birdie told me that in fact today is Mr. Houston's birthday. Wish him a happy birthday. I didn't know when I scheduled him. I was being so mean and scheduling him on his birthday. But give him another round of applause. All right. So
now I'm about as old as Linda Ferguson.
Oh, and so kids.
I did. I did.
Yes. Also, it's Toby's birthday. Oh, really nice. Congratulations. So if you are in their labs, you need to be especially nice to them. Even though you don't know them very well, you could even purchase them a birthday candy bar or something. Just making a suggestion. All right, so we are gonna do a couple of things. It's super important you pay close attention. Item the first. Up here, I have hard copies for you of the 2 and 3 week schedule and hard copies of the roll